because once your mind cracks open, the weirdest things happen. And if you really focus on, let's say, your art, you are gonna get something if you continuously do it every day. Like if you draw every day, you will eventually find progress. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's like, to your point of the cracking, like, it's like you have to break, you have to
yeah.
break from your old self, right? In
Yep.
order to evolve and move forward as a person. If you want drastic change, you got to go through like drastic measures,
You
like.
do. You do.
All right, welcome everyone to this Force interview. Today I have Gary. I want to say is what's the heritage of that? Is it Via Real or is it Villa Real?
It's funny that you say that because you know how we talked about the American way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
how you say the American way. The heritage, I think, it comes from Spain, I think,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I took a little DNA test and I have like 60% Spaniard in me. So
Yeah, I could believe that. You look like you have Spanish heritage, right?
yeah, a lot of people think I'm Italian. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know we're going off topic,
Yeah,
but in a short, you pretty much say it like Villarreal.
Via Real. Mm-hmm.
There you go. You just roll that double R in there.
Yeah, I can do the Y and the L thing. Oh
Yeah.
well, in Spanish. So is it Villa or is it Villa? Do you turn that into the Y?
Yeah, why? Yeah,
Villa.
Villa. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Villa Real. Yeah, yeah. There's not much. I've been to Spain and Barcelona actually last year, and
Oh.
there's a lot of commonality in appearance, too, that runs across those areas of Europe. So.
That's true. You're getting me jealous right now because I've always wanted to go.
Oh yeah, you got to go. Barcelona is. I was only there a few days, unfortunately, but it was awesome. That's definitely a
Mm,
place I want to return to. People
mm.
were great, and the culture was great. Food was great, and the city's just awesome.
But the wine is good too, right?
Gas, wine, all of it. I mean, I had paella was like my first meal there. I remember, and it was amazing. Just amazing.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, not to go into that too far. When I literally just got into Barcelona, I got out of the airport, got a cab over to the city, and then I was walking to my Airbnb apartment. Literally right down the street from the apartment was like an open square with a church, very European-esque, right? And
yeah.
there was a woman like dancing in the middle of this crowd from this restaurant with the tables outside, and I was like, I'm like in the right place here.
That's your
So
life. That's it.
yeah, like that's it. I gotta move to Europe. you know, so fantastic.
It is, man.
So first of all, thank you so much for coming today. I'm a huge fan of your work. As you know, we've talked a little bit back and forth through Instagram, which is how I
Hmm.
found you. So thank God for stuff like Instagram because it really gets us all to share in each other's interests and our work.
Hmm.
And as you know, I reached out to you because I was like, God, your drawing is so forceful and fluid. Like, is this something you're even aware of? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you said, yeah, I know about the Force books and all that stuff, right?
Hmm. That's one of the books that really loosened me up, because I mean, I don't know if for every artist, you kind of reach a point where you even judge your work where it's too tight. It doesn't feel organic.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you reach a point where you get different influences from books or YouTube. But at the time, I think YouTube was at its infancy stage, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember seeing any videos like that. But books that really helped loosen me up. And again, I remember one of your, and I'm not saying your book, like the reason why I'm saying it, it's not because you're interviewing me, but it's
Yeah.
actually it did really play a big role in the way it developed my skills. You
Oh,
know,
thank you. Thank you for saying that. That
yeah,
means a
yeah.
lot to me. And I
Hmm.
mean that sincerely. It really does mean a lot to me. It's easy to say that, but I'm so happy to see how the stuff in the books have affected artists' lives and how everyone uses it in their own way also.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the goal of the books has never been to develop style. It's to understand a thing that really exists and that every artist can use it in their own way, in their
Hmm.
work.
It's like you're opening up that awareness of a person, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know you could look at it that way. And
Yes. Yes. That's right.
mhm.
Yeah. That's a great way of looking at it. It is like doing that. It's trying to help each artist gain a new level of awareness in themselves and of the world
Yep.
around them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty
Well,
profound.
I could really get into that whole topic of awareness, and just like how every artist could like you could maybe spark an awareness in some other person, but maybe I couldn't do that for that person. You know, it's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
and it's like this whole chain reaction that happens with everybody. And I think that's honestly something very beautiful that, you know, artists should begin sharing their way of going about creating.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyways, I'm sorry. I don't. You can. This is what's going to happen. We're going to end up going a lot of tangents. All right. So.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And I love that. Let's just talking about organic, right? This will be a very fluid and rhythmic conversation.
Exactly.
So let's what I love doing, and I want to make a consistency across all the interviews we go through,
Okay.
is I like starting with everyone's childhoods. So you did a great job, by the way, of sending over some work. So yeah, so let's talk about this, right? Like, what year was
Yeah.
this done? This is
1980. No, 1998. Actually, I don't know
98.
why I said 80. I was like, that was before my time. I was still
Yeah.
in the dust. You know.
So how old were you when you were in 98?
I I believe I was 9 years old.
Okay.
A shout out to my mom for sending these pictures.
Ah, that's awesome. Yeah,
But
that's
it's
awesome.
crazy. I don't know if I'm pretty sure that every artist has the same story where they begin drawing their entire lives in the beginning, right? They had this interest.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
Most, not
Yeah,
all.
most, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
not all. Yeah, that's true. You got a good point on that too.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I didn't really have an interest that much, but
Mhm.
I think it sparked from my brothers, and because they always drew, and of course as a child you see that influence around you, and you kind of want to mimic them.
Mhm.
And so I really had to thank them for, you know, drawing whatever they were drawing. I think they were drawing a lot of Mortal Kombat at the time,
Right.
and a lot of I think it was like vehicles. You know, like, you know those mud trucks magazines that they used to hand out, or like lowrider magazines, stuff like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they would, you know, draw from that, and I would pretty much draw from what they drew. And so it
Right.
was like a derivative, you know, going down.
So are you the youngest of three boys?
The youngest of three boys and one sister. So the sister's the oldest. And
Oh, okay.
but it's funny because the neighborhood that I grew up in, we were so competitive in terms of like sports, and I had one buddy in particular that was very competitive with art, and he would draw like these amazing Dragon Ball Z characters, right? And it is funny because looking back at my skills and the fact that I'm using mechanical pencils, it all kind of stemmed from him, because when he would draw like a Dragon Ball Z character with the mechanical pencils, there was always this clean line work that was applied to it. And me, I was using a regular number two pencil, and you could tell whenever the line quality starts getting a little, I guess, rough as the pencil dulls, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I don't know, it just, that whole competition that him and I had, you know, to outshow each other. You know, I would show like a different Dragon Ball Z character one day. He'd be like, "Oh man, well, look what I did," you know. And it was always this competition between us. Um, and in terms of like elementary school, going to regular art school, or art classes, it was, I don't know if art school or art classes were more, I don't know if they were so educational to a point where it was more set up in a way they, you know, place a prop in front of you and they would just draw, and the teacher would go off in their, you know, their computer and just watch us draw this mango and toy, whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. 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 I want to dig in just a little bit for a second about. I really like trying to understand people's childhoods because I think obviously that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
So you were the youngest of four, and you had two other brothers and an oldest sister.
Hmm.
And as you said, you were really inspired by your brother's drawing, right?
Hmm.
Just I think it's kind of interesting. I know with Josh, for instance, in his interview, he had a brother, a twin, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so the two of them really inspired each other in drawing, and then they had I think he had an older cousin that was like amazing at drawing, and so they had this, he had this really reinforced early inspirational, structure in
Hmm.
place. I didn't, for me, honestly, I didn't have that. Like I was the one who was just always drawing. My mom drew a little
Gotcha.
bit, like she probably would have been able to if she had been trained more, but for me, it was being surrounded by like comic books and kids who like Dungeons and Dragons and all this other geeky stuff that
Yeah.
we did, you know.
Some
Um,
Stranger Things kind of
yeah, yeah, that's my
scenario, right?
life. Yeah, yeah. No,
That's
that's totally
beautiful.
my life. Like when I watch Stranger Things, I was born in 1970, so
Hmm.
the 80s are like my, 70s and 80s are my childhood. Um, and yeah, it was all that stuff was around me all the time. Video games came out. Uh, Dungeons and Dragons and comics, those were like my main, and cartoons, all those things were like my
Yeah.
main drivers. So it's cool that your brothers, were there as a support system. Was there anything else besides like the magazines or the truck mags? Was there certain cartoons or comics or anything else that were like, oh my God, I just love this so much. I have to get to understand it.
I think for me it was a lot of Lowrider Arte magazine.
Mm,
So you have the Lowrider magazine, and then you have the Lowrider Arte,
mm,
and where it just showed a lot of artists from LA, a lot of people from LA, and they it's pretty much like a collection of these artists that put up Lowrider art, and
mm,
I think for me that was at the time was very inspiring.
mhm,
And then but at the same time it was kind of limiting because that's a lot of what I drew. I either drew that or I drew from what I saw. Like for example, what you see on the left side, that was from I think Toy Soldier. I think Toy
mhm,
Soldiers,
mhm,
one of my favorite movies. But as a kid you're pretty much copying what you see,
right.
right? And yeah, you could have some imaginative work, but I mean, I even remember the character on the right side. I think he was from a, a Nickelodeon show or something. I don't know where exactly it came from, but
Mhm,
um, so when I look back at these drawings, I was just a photocopier, and which is what exactly we are at that age
mhm,
because we haven't experienced life, right?
mhm, mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know how high school influenced you or.
High school was actually a big deal for me because I took 4 years of architecture and mechanical drawing,
Mm.
and that was really the path I was on. And by senior year, I just recognized there was way too much math involved, and
Yeah.
I had built up like a really bad stigma to math. I had just bad teachers in high school, and that made me hate
Yeah.
math more. So
Mm.
I was like, okay, I can't. I thought this was going to be my career. I can't do this. And I was taking commercial art classes at the same time, and that teacher knew that I liked comics, so he said, you know what, why don't you push all of the commercial art assignments towards comic book design. So I did that, and that was the late, I graduated high school in 88. So that was right around when The Dark Knight came out by Miller and Jansen.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that comic book changed my life. That's when I was like, okay, I'm going into comics. Like I'm gonna go find a school that has, a comic book curriculum.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to the School of Visual Arts in New York. It was
Mm.
because of that. So
Where are you from
New Jersey.
originally? New
Yeah,
Jersey? Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay, gotcha.
yeah, New Jersey. So I went to school in New York, and I grew up. I was born in Brooklyn, so it started there. But I was around 9 or 10. I moved out to New Jersey. So
Mm.
the real formative years of being a teenager, was all
Yeah.
New Jersey. And I had friends that were artists as well, so we were always drawing, each other's like comic book characters. We would we would draw each other's comic book characters like attacking each other's comic book characters to show
Yeah.
it was
Oh, I
like
know what you mean.
it was like this whole machismo, weirdness that we were going through in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess better have your comic book characters attack each other than
Mm-hmm,
than,
mm-hmm.
than do the real thing. Um, but yeah, so that was high school for me. What about you? Like, how was high school then? You
I
see,
think for me,
yeah.
well, it's like when you come from a smaller city, you only know so much, right? So when I was in high school, I took little art classes that they had, took some AP art as well,
Hmm.
but the majority of it, looking back, was just again drawing what you see. You know, they say, hey, you know, take some photos and draw from the photo reference.
Hmm.
And you know, talking about path, because you talked about having your path kind of deterred from you know, architecture, right,
Hmm.
and going on to a different direction.
Yep.
At the time, I didn't really have a clear path. I thought that after high school and in the beginning of college, I thought that was going to be uh, like a point where I was going to detach from art, you
Hmm.
know, because you know, living in a country town or a city, your life is a little bit limited in terms of what you're going to do creatively, unless you're going to do, let's say, t-shirt designs, because there was a lot of those companies that designed t-shirts for the, you know, the university that was nearby, Texas A&M.
Oh, so you're
um,
from, I was just going to ask you, so you're from
yeah,
Texas. Okay.
yeah, I'm originally from Texas. And so I think that was one of the cool things about living next to a big university, that you get a glimpse of what the outside world could be.
Hmm.
um, but in terms of art, I really didn't have a clear path in like knowing where I wanted to go, what school I wanted to go. I
Hmm.
had a friend that actually did go come out here to Los Angeles, and that kind of showed me what, you know, our school could do. And I've always was a little envious about that, because I've always wanted to go to an art school.
Hmm.
But I was kind of grateful enough to have some teachers that you know, they shared their knowledge,
Hmm.
of and at the same time it was very, I guess, awakening, because they were a little rough on me sometimes. They were like, the way they would critique, and which is amazing, because I love when a teacher just tells it how it is, because that's the fastest way for an artist to learn, if you think about it, instead of going around the bush and say it's amazing, oh it's amazing,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But yeah, the path was a little blurry at the time.
Hmm.
And yeah.
So you want to tell us a little bit about these two real quick?
Yeah. Oh, so Beast Wars. I don't know if you remember that show,
I
right?
do.
Oh, so I had that toy, right? And I remember, again, what my classes would teach us, you know, put something in front of you and copy it, right?
Right.
And as you can tell, I didn't have any sense of, you know, 3D, 3D man, you know, 3D space or anything like that. Well, I drew what I saw. I drew as if I drew with one eye. You get what
Right.
I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and on the right side, it's funny because I grew up in a ghetto area,
Yeah.
and I would do these kind of things. I would do drawings for friends of mine, little homie statues, right? But just,
Right.
but it was mainly just to be cool with them.
Yeah.
I used, I guess at the time, I used my craft to put me in different levels socially,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure every artist went through the same thing.
Yeah.
And you know, I would have some friends that'd be like, "Hey Gary, man, I was wondering, man, can you do like a coupe de ville with this kind of rim here?" I was like, "Oh, of course, right?"
Yeah. That's so funny.
And I would just render it out for $5, and it took me maybe 5 hours. So $1 an hour is not bad for that time, right?
That's right. Exactly. On the way to your riches.
Exactly, rags to riches, right there, my friend.
Yeah, no, it's true though. It's interesting, not to make this too abstract or grandiose, but your art can help you with your, I wouldn't say social status, but more of, how you connect. It's a connection tool, right? It's a social it is nowadays, right? Like
Yeah, it is.
look at social media and look at us on Instagram and places like that, right? It's our way of connecting to huge audiences, right? And here you
Yeah,
are, you're basically doing Instagram in high school.
pretty
Right?
much, right? In a little
Yeah.
nutshell, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
But
You
do you think that you know, it can be helpful socially, but also it could limit you in terms of the way you interact with people? Because
Mm.
I personally think that art, the fact that I was so submersed, like immersed, I guess that's the word, in
Mhm.
art at the time, it it blocked a part of me socially. Like it didn't, I wasn't able to develop my social part quite as well as my art side, you know?
Sure.
I guess that began, that side of me began developing when I started working retail and I was forced to be in front of people and talk to them.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one of the things I really recommend artists doing is working, you know, in a service industry where you're forced to communicate with people, uh, dealing with their bad moods, you know how that is.
Yeah.
Um, and because as an artist, you know, you have to develop all kinds of aspects. Like for you, you know, you have to develop your business side. You have to develop how to, you know, talk to students, or
Yep.
how to break down your own ideas,
Yes. Yeah.
which eh, I never knew about that until recently. And I'm sorry for, you know, running that.
No, no, it's good. No, you're exactly right. I mean, for me, again, something people probably don't know about me, but I did caricatures on the side
Mhm.
for like 11 years. It was like,
Holy moly.
as a secondary job, just as an income. And man, what better way for you to get out of an introverted skin than
Yeah.
having to be the focus of entertainment? Like
Yes.
I did birthday parties, bar mitzvahs. I did a NBA. There was an NBA like party that I did out in New York City.
Hmm.
It was like hundreds and hundreds of people, and you are the entertainment. You got
Oh,
crowds
so
of people around you, like
yeah.
talking, and you're talking to the person, and they're talking to you.
That
And
is so nerve wracking. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
after a while,
like,
you just get used. It's like anything else; you just get used to it.
yeah.
It breaks you in. Like you
Yeah.
either are going to become stronger or you're going to be broken by it. And
Yeah.
hopefully you grow through those experiences. Same with
That's,
teaching, like you said, teaching is the same thing. It's you're the entertainment, you're teaching,
hmm,
communicating, learning how to communicate clearly. Like it's all
yeah.
those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. And that's like one of the tough things as well. Like, is, for example, if you're a teacher,
Mhm.
if you were barely starting, the education is not going to be as good as now, right? Because of your knowledge, correct? I mean,
Yeah,
and the way you could break it down to different people, because some
yeah.
people understand it like this, other people you need to break it down to like a element, like the most basic form for people to really understand.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I use metaphors a lot when I teach, and it's exactly
yeah,
for that reason. It's because you don't know what exact word or phrase or idea is going to unlock that
yeah,
person, right? Like you were
yeah,
saying
yep,
before, you're trying to unlock people in a way. I'm always trying to figure out that, it's like everyone's like a combination lock in a sense. And it's like,
yeah,
what's the
yeah,
right phrase or what's the right thing I can do or say that's going to make them click, and then,
yeah.
and you can see, I think this might be what you're asking, but you can see when it happens.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You could see it in a drawing. I'll be like, "Oh, you got it," and they're like,
Yes.
"You're right, I did. How do you know that?" And I'm like, "Well, look, you did this, this, and this, and it's so different from what you did just a minute
Yeah.
before, right?"
Mike, you're reading my mind. And yeah, that's exactly what I was.
Yeah, no, that's what keeps me teaching. Quite frankly,
Yeah,
I think that's what the payoff as an instructor is that click.
yeah, yeah,
Unlocking the lock in somebody and seeing that drastic change is,
yeah.
to me, is my payment. It's like,
Gotcha,
they
gotcha.
got it. It's so exciting,
Uh,
you know.
that moment of awakening.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were
So
gonna go in depth. I thought you were gonna zoom up all the way to the crack. But like, oh, that's a nice little detail. I could
yeah,
use that
look at
for a
that
painting.
little. Yeah, let's look at that eyeball.
No.
Talk about the eyeball there. So
Oh,
you were in Texas, and it sounds like, to recap what you said, being close to a big school gave you a sense of there's a bigger world than just the one I'm growing up in here.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
was that was like New York for me. It's like, whoa, I'm in this small town, New Jersey, but New York is 15 minutes away. Like there's a whole world culture here, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you had a
But,
friend that moved to LA,
mhm,
right? So that gave you this, it's like, oh, that's possible. That's a path I can
yeah.
take. And ironically, I had a friend in college whose girlfriend had moved out to LA towards the end of our senior year. So he went out there on a trip and I went with him and I got to see Los Angeles and I was like, whoa, there's a whole other world over here. Right?
But seeing is actually believing, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
again, when my friend left, you know, I thought nothing of it. I continue my path in life. Again, living in a smaller city, you just had your path as, okay, you're going to community college or going to Texas A&M, and then you're off from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm pretty sure when you went to go see your friend and saw the entire city as a whole, that was like a great awakening for you.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, that was one thing that I really missed. Again, because if I was to have a conversation with my younger self,
Mm-hmm.
it would be two different mindsets. And I could tell you, like as we progress in the conversation, the moment of awakening for me compared to the younger self.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was going to college, and I don't know if you want me to transition to college
Yeah,
at this
please.
point,
Mm-hmm.
but going to college was like very disheartening because I was looking back, I kind of spent my entire year or like my entire time there, maybe two-thirds, or not two-thirds, I don't know why I say two-thirds, three-fourths of my time just doing stuff that really didn't matter, like the basics, English, math, all this stuff, which it pays off a little bit.
Sure.
But I had a few teachers. I think everything changed when I got accepted to A&M to their the visualization program,
Mm-hmm.
which at the time was a little. It was like a guinea pig class because they were first starting this. I think it was new as a new program to the school, and of course, with any new program, it's kind of like experimental, see what works with students. And so I got a chance to meet some great artists there, and it was, I think, mainly networking that really helped me out because one of my friends that went to A&M eventually went to Los Angeles, which like a few years later down the line got me where I am now.
Right.
Right. But um, going back to going back to college now,
Yeah.
when I graduated, uh, I was still working retail. So I had this degree, and I don't know if you ever had this happen where artists, they go to a school and then when they graduate, they're like, I thought that I was supposed to get a job, but in reality, it's what you put in, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly what you put in, how you network with people.
Yeah.
But I was naive in that sense. I thought that it was gonna come.
Mm-hmm.
But I would continue working retail, and there was a point where I got a job interview for their corporate office doing designing packages for their own brand items.
How did
And
that
from
happen? Right. Like
oh
these are the things no one talks about. They go, oh, I got
yeah,
this thing. But
yeah,
that's
that's
such a
true.
weird thing. How did you end up on like a retail floor and now you're like designing stuff for a corporate office? Did somebody notice your work? Did you bring it into work and show it to somebody? Did
I,
you take it on and send it out to someone? Like, how'd that happen?
I think it was my unit director. So
Ah,
the I guess you know what a unit director is, right? He's just like the person in charge of that particular store.
mm,
And my girlfriend, wife now, but my girlfriend at the time, she pushed me to apply for this position, and I said, oh, what are the chances? Come on, like I don't even know what my degree is going to give me because it was visualization. It's like
right.
it was very blunt, like
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I applied, and my unit director, thanks to him, he actually contacted the people from corporate. They were like, hey, give this guy a chance. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he did that made me it kind of gave me confidence,
Yeah,
because
sure.
but these doors that open up, they don't open up by themselves. You actually have to put in the work
Yeah.
in order, you have to scratch on the wall or
Yeah.
scratch on the door for it to open up.
Yeah.
And again, like, I guess that was a moment in my life where I thought I made it, right? I was like, this is success. I
Yeah.
had I even had like this song was like from Drake that says started from the bottom, now I'm here, right? Because I
Mm,
was working 8 years in retail and then going to school, and then I got this job where it's like I'm doing art, but it was more of a graphic design position.
right.
and and I know I'm kind of speed through and like speedballing through this whole thing, and I love the fact that you went back and it's like, wait, what was
Yeah.
that one
Yeah.
moment though, right?
Yeah. How'd that happen? Right.
Yeah. But when I was doing packaging design, I thought I made it, and but I was fooling myself at the end because, as time went on, it was this position was more of a temporary position to test me, I
Mhm.
guess. But that position ended up extending
Mhm.
to like a year and a half. So I was like getting comfortable, but then I started noticing that it wasn't my calling. Like I was fooling myself. Like if I looked at the mirror and I was like, is this really what you want to do your entire life?
Mhm.
No, but I was doing it for the money, right? I
Yeah.
don't know if you ever
Right.
had that.
Yeah, of course. Most definitely.
And one of the big life-changing moments was when my position, the one that I was working on, was being interviewed, right? So I had to re-interview for my position,
Ah,
and a few months later, I ended up finding that I didn't get my position because,
wow.
again, I sucked as a graphic designer. Who was I fooling, right?
Right.
Um, but
Yeah.
then my boss gave me, and I don't know if I'm going too far ahead. Like I don't know if,
No, this is good.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So my boss gave me 6 months time before he said, "Hey, either you quit or we're going to send you back to the stores." And
Right.
for me, it was like a downgrade, and I didn't want to go back to where I was.
Right.
And mentally, I think it'll screw me up as a creative, right?
Right.
But
You
those
got to
6,
stay on that hero's journey and keep
exactly,
moving
it was,
forward.
yes, yeah. And this is where I started getting very I guess you could say religious, right? Or like very in tone with God and the universe, because
Mhm.
within those 6 months, I was cracking down on what I uh, what I thought at that time was concept art, because I
Mhm.
was like, "Ooh, that looked pretty cool. They're designing for the entertainment industry, doing characters, environments. That's some cool stuff, right?"
What year is this?
This was, I believe, 2014, right?
Oh, okay. It's not that long ago.
Yeah, it was fresh, right?
Mhm.
So I knew about concept art, and that was always something in the back of my mind. So when I was working, I
Mhm.
would come home and like just practice the fundamentals. At the time, I think I started learning from uh, Feng Zhu,
Mhm.
Yu, Bobby
Mhm.
Chu. That
Mhm.
kind of rhyme. You like that? That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. And I started getting all this, like, at the time, again, YouTube was like banging. Everybody was putting content, and I was
yeah.
like learning left and right,
Yeah.
because which was something that I missed from college, because in our school, that's where they teach you all of this stuff.
Right.
Um, but I kind of felt behind. So I swear I was working, you know, my day job, and then I would come home and I would just spend my entire nights drawing, studying.
Mhm.
And then as that time, as the clock was ticking, it was 1 month left, and I was like, okay, well, I guess this is where I'm gonna, fall off the cuckoo's nest, right? And
Right.
I was, and as a human being, I was so used to working for retail for like 10 years now. That was a big part of my life. So I was scared of that that moment of not receiving constant money. Like the money flow was like gonna be cut off, right?
Right.
And I know you talked about it too, when the school and everything, you were so nervous because you had to
Yeah.
provide it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And the same day that I quit, a friend of mine from A&M
Mhm.
contacted me and said, "Hey man, we're looking for a concept artist." And I was like, Yes, yes, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool." But it's funny because my skills at the time wasn't up to par. To be honest, it really
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was grateful at the fact that my friend made me, and like subconsciously made me confident at the fact that I am putting a foot in the right direction,
Mhm.
and which a lot of people, sometimes we need that, like to really find, am I making the right choice? And you need that kind of this universal. How can I say it, like this?
Maybe
Man, this
alignment. It's like the
exactly.
universe has to provide you finally with this moment.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And from there, I could keep on going if you want.
I know that's hours worth of conversation.
Exactly. But that entire year was a big blur because there was so many new things.
Yeah.
So when I quit, uh, like a few months later, I proposed to my wife, and we ended up getting married like quickly, right?
Yeah.
So this whole idea of new entering my life, entering a person's life that's been so used to just working a regular 9 to 5, and then now it's just like, oh my gosh, well, I am in this chaotic, world now, right?
Right.
But I find it really interesting that within chaos, you find a part of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
So what was
yeah,
this? What was the company? Was it a,
it was
where'd you start Concept? Like your friend helped you get this job?
it was a little company called Arena Online, right? And this company they were doing online services for League of Legends, like little tournaments for that. So
Hmm.
I was designing uh, like little how can I say, little trophy cups, right?
Hmm.
And I guess whoever won would get like a digital trophy cup, bloop,
Right.
right, with
Right.
some digital currency, I guess.
Right. Right.
But at the time, I swear, it was like, oh, this is it, dude. I
It's
made
the
it, right?
best. Yeah.
Yes, it was the best, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to understand that little click that happens with a person's mind when, especially as a young person, when you have that reassurance, like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing it,
Yeah.
right?
You start to believe in yourself.
Yes, that believing is like one
Yeah.
of the powerful moment in anybody's life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this was a crazy year because, again, I got married and I didn't have a job.
Right.
Well, after that, I finished the contract
Yep.
and I moved to Houston, and I was married again. And well, not married again, but I was married,
Hmm.
and I was still trying to figure myself out. I was lost as a person, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you want me to continue doing this, but again, if as I started working just a couple of odd jobs here and there, but at the same time, I was doing digital spit paintings. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No, what's that?
It's like 30-minute spit paints. It was a group on Facebook where they would provide a topic and people would do 30-minute paintings of that topic.
Huh.
And so I was really big into in that whole group, and I was posting every day, maybe 2 times a day.
Hmm.
So the social aspect of this, letting people know who I was, because again, with the internet, in a sense, if you don't post there, you're kind of, you're just I don't want to say a fart in the wind, right? You're just kind of like you're in there, right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess the more you let people know that you're an artist, you're creating, you're doing things, people will start like maybe you might hit a art director that might like your work and say, I want to contact him.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. I think, going back to one of the things that really resonates for me is that whole idea of, believing in yourself. Um, I think that's really the make or break period.
Yeah.
It's like, and if it's not you, then at least somebody around you that does believe in you more than even maybe you believe in you, that gets you to believe in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You still have to
That was
get
a
to
little
that moment.
inception.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Like you have to get to this moment where that finally happens. Like when I was in school, I was trying to get into Disney animation, and they had a relationship with the school I was at. And I didn't get in the first time I had tried to get in, and that sort of shook the foundations of my belief system. I thought I had a really strong shot for
Yeah.
numerous reasons, and when I didn't get in, I was like, "What? Like, how did I not get in? I did everything that I thought was the right thing to do."
Yeah.
And that year, it was right after I graduated from college. That year was I feel like it was a real test of my belief system.
Mm.
I teetered back and forth until the next time Disney was going to come around a year later, thinking, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I don't have it. Nah, I was so close. Like, there's got to be something that they're seeing. They were willing to look at my work and review my work, and that was already trying to get through numerous gates to even to that place. So, man, it was just this tough year of. It's weird. It's like being on the other side of the door, and you
Yes.
just
Yes.
don't know what they want on the other side, and you just want to be able to
Yeah.
unlock the darn door and get some answers.
And we
So
often take it personal, right?
Yeah, you think it's you,
Yeah.
and in the end, now that I've been in the, in and out of the industry, the entertainment industry for almost 25, 30 years now, that it isn't personal at all.
Mm-mm.
Like companies are looking for certain things, there's certain things that they need out of the artists in order to
Yeah.
fulfill the jobs that they have,
Yeah.
right? So it's not personal at all, and once I did get in, when I was at Disney, I myself saw the next portfolio reviews come in, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're on the other side, I was like, oh, this is really obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see that this person is like so much better than this one. This guy's a much clearer choice than this person to get this, to get into the next internship.
Hmm. Hmm.
But man, it's so weird. Like you just don't know until
Yeah.
and believing, right? Believing in yourself. I mean, my stint at Disney changed my life. It changed
Yeah.
my life. I wouldn't be here today, talking to you.
But
So
it was stages though, because there's
yeah,
little milestones that may
yeah,
make you believe. Like maybe, like, for example, my friend contacted me. That was one, like a one sliver of belief, right? But you
mhm,
still had so much doubt. You had to like build through that, right?
yeah,
And
yeah. No, most definitely. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and that goes across anything, that can be being a business owner to, being an artist to being a husband to being a
Oh,
father, right? It's all these things
it
combined.
is.
Like
It is.
what do you believe in what do you believe about yourself?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think most of the time we think that that does have to come from the outside, and you rely on other people to set up what you believe about yourself or not, instead of you trying to really figure that out, you know.
It is, right?
Tricky.
It's very tricky, man. And I think there's a point that I want to share that really, I think it really changed the way I view life in general.
Hmm.
And so, like continuing the story, right? So when I moved in with my wife, I was living in Houston, and that was I think 2016 now, right? It was about a year after that, and again, I still kept on doing the digital spit paints. And one random day, a friend of mine that was a colleague, oh, not a colleague, is it a colleague from from the university?
An acquaintance.
Acquaintance, right? A friend of mine, right? A friend of mine from A&M.
Yeah.
He contacted me like at 8 p.m. my time, and he was like, "Hey, dude, send me your portfolio. My company's looking for a concept artist."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Well, where do you live at?" Right? Again, he was like, "I live in Los Angeles, Los Angeles." And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, okay." And I was just sending all of these spit paints, right?
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Right.
And what do you know? I started. I got the interview, right?
Mhm.
And I was so nervous because again, you got to keep in mind I had a small mindset.
Yes.
I
Right.
never like I at this point I never left the state,
Right.
you know. So I remember telling my wife, "Hey, babe, I have a interview, and if I get the job, we might go to Los Angeles, right?" She was like crying, "Oh my God, no, we're gonna be away from family."
Right.
But little do I know, or did you know, right? When I got the job
Hmm.
and I moved out there, and that was like one of the biggest shifts in my life
Yeah. Sure.
because I was away from family. I was away from all of these influences, and on
Yep.
top of that, I was the first time working for a studio, right, in the studio.
Right.
So I got the first-hand experience in working with art directors and
Hmm.
well, art directors that knew what they were doing.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there,
That's true.
uh, and it was such an eye-opening experience because I had to now live in an area where they're super expensive, right? So I had to like really push hard
Yep.
in my craft, and being away from family that gave me a lot of time. In the short run, I think it's kind of like now that I look back, I sacrificed a lot of family time,
Right.
but which is one of the reasons why I want to move back.
Right.
But but if it wasn't for the move here and being away from all the influence, and it was just me and my wife, butting heads because how good we're newly married, right?
Right.
And it was one of those experiences that I recommend every artist going through, because once your mind cracks open,
Yeah.
the weirdest things happen, you
Yeah.
know. And if you really focus on, let's say, your art, you are gonna get something if you continuously do it every day. Like if you draw every day, you will eventually find progress, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
It's like to your point of the cracking, like it's like you have to break, you have to
yeah.
break from your old self, right? In
Yep.
order to evolve and move forward as a person. If you want drastic change, you got to go through like drastic measures,
You do, you do.
like you would have changed and you'd grow and you'd mature, but you wouldn't be who you are today if you hadn't made the move to LA, right?
Exactly. And I'm going to ping pong that conversation to you. If it wasn't
Yeah.
for, let's say, Disney,
Yeah.
do you ever look at your past? Like, you ever look at what
Oh
would have
yeah.
it been if I would have quit? Right?
Yeah. 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 No, most definitely. I mean, there's so many, you and I talked about this before we started today. There's so many very key specific moments in my life where I'm aware that was a split in the road.
Yeah.
It's like I went this way. What would have happened if I went that other way? I have no idea, right? And it's not even worth regretting any of them. It's just kind of more of a curiosity of
It is.
what would have happened. Who knows? There's so many of those in my life, like either decisions I made or people I listened to that I allowed to influence me and allow me to make other decisions. I mean, even the Disney thing, I didn't go to art school for animation. I actually went for comics. And the Disney thing happened to show up because a guy at the school that had just come back from the internship was going to finish up his senior year. And
Yeah.
he came into one of the classes and the teacher was like, "Oh, Anthony's going to tell you about Disney. He just got back from there." And I happen to know this guy, Anthony, a little bit from my year prior. So I had the confidence after class to go and talk to him about it.
What are the
And
chances, right?
yeah, what are the chances, right? And I said, I'm kind of interested in this Disney thing. He's like, "Oh, I still have my portfolio down in the trunk of my car." It was like first day of school, right? For my junior year, right? His senior year. He's like, "I still have the portfolio in the car. Do you want to go see it?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's go." So I remember walking down, I was in New York going to school. So we walked down to the street. His car was parked around the corner. He opened up the trunk. It was still filled with like bags of his clothes and stuff, right? He'd
Yeah.
literally just come up from Florida like the day before, right?
Hmm.
And his portfolio was in there and I was flipping through it. And all of a sudden I had this giant epiphany, right? I was like, wow, I think I could do this. Like
Yeah.
I never thought about this. I've been thinking about comics and I really loved drawing, as you all know, right? Like I loved figure drawing. That was my favorite subject in school. So I was looking for, jobs that might have that potential with comics as my main focus. And now all of a sudden this animation thing hit me with a ton of bricks from nowhere, right? So
Yeah.
it's also being open and accepting to the universe coming to you and,
Yeah.
you're making decisions at least. So what am I going to do with that?
Did you feel behind whenever you got bombarded with the animation idea?
Um, it did split my attention, right?
Mhm.
Because my whole senior year and part of my junior year, then I was focusing on my figure drawing, and I also had the comic book portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, all Disney wanted was really good drawing skills, so it didn't really demand very much of a new portfolio. There were a couple of things in there I had to do that I wasn't being taught at school. Like I had to learn
Mhm.
how to draw on location and draw people and animals and things I didn't have to do for school per se.
Yeah.
But I was lucky in that Disney wanted just a very strong foundational drawing
Hmm.
portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it did cause me a lot of stress. I mean, I remember in my senior year prepping for that portfolio, and like literally every drawing I did in every figure drawing class was, is this one going to get into the portfolio? And then I would do
Hmm.
this drawing and I'd be like, "Oh, it's going great, it's going great, it's going great." And then I would always inadvertently sabotage myself like at the last moment.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, I can't take the stress anymore.
Yeah.
I finally just had to throw in the towel, and I said, I just got to go back to what I was doing. Like, I'm just here to learn. And if I get a good drawing out of this, then I get a good drawing. If I don't, I don't. But I've got to focus on my learning instead of thinking these drawings are for a portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just too much. It's like way too much. And like I said, I kept self-sabotaging. So,
Hmm. I
and
want to.
yeah.
I want to reach a point where, again, when I was living out here, I started becoming more self-aware, right? and
Hmm.
understanding why I draw, right?
Hmm.
And I want to get to a point where, I could explain it to a person, and like if somebody's chasing a dream, right?
Yeah.
What kind of energy do they need, or how can they channel different forms of energy to become positive? Like if a negative energy comes to you, how can you filter that down to chase what you're really going for?
Right.
And I don't know if, like, some people break whenever they receive bad news that maybe they didn't get in, right? Or
Right.
like for you, the fact that you kept on pushing, and
Right.
but I think the fact that they declined you in the beginning, it kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna prove you wrong kind of idea. Like I'm gonna, eh,
Yeah, there's some part of that. I mean, that takes definitely, like you said, a certain kind of strength. I think in my life in general, I like having a lottery ticket out there for myself.
mm,
It's like the bigger dream of, this is almost impossible, but
mm,
I'm going to try anyway,
mm,
and not like it's all the time. Like, right now my focus is on teaching and drawingforce.com. Um, and I kind of miss this, which is I like having the lottery ticket. So, like I like pitching ideas. This is something, again, most people don't know about me, but I've pitched actually quite a bit in Los Angeles. I've been in every like major studio there.
yeah,
And I like that. And it's something I want to come back to. I like the lottery ticket of I'm doing my day-to-day thing, but there's also this other thing I'm really interested
mm,
in. That's almost seems impossible.
yeah, yeah,
So that's exciting to me. I think that
yeah,
helps then keep me alive. I like the excitement of, can I potentially, it's growing again, I guess, can I
yeah.
potentially grow into a bigger version of myself again, by
Do
pushing.
you ever have a moment where, let's say the lottery did hit, right? But sometimes we kind of hope that it doesn't hit, so that that drive, that feeling stays with us,
Yeah.
that little giddy feelings.
Well, not only that, but you and I talked earlier about when I shut my school down, I had a cartoon IP that Cartoon Network was interested in, right?
Hmm.
But to go through the green light process is a lot of big what ifs, that you have to go
Hmm.
through different gates until something actually ends up on TV. And I needed to move. I was getting this job up in the Bay Area. And I basically had to shut that down. And then I really shut it down because I realized I have a good thing here now in San Francisco.
Yep.
It's almost they talk about like the fear of success, right?
Yeah.
I thought, like, what if I do get this? If I pitch and I do get it, am I willing to move? Do I want to go back down to LA? The hours become far, they're far worse than what I was doing at the job I was at. I had like a very stable 40-hour work week, and my kids were young. I really enjoyed spending time with them, and I missed a lot of that time with them when I had my school. I was doing like 80, 100-hour weeks, right? So
Oh,
yeah, they were insane weeks, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that again. So I just, again, it's almost self-sabotage in a way, but I think subconsciously I was like, I'm not going to pitch. I kept stopping myself from doing it because
mm,
I wasn't ready.
yeah.
Now I feel confident and comfortable for me to return to that if I wanted to, because my kids are older, and I can move anywhere I want to move now with the website and teaching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would make more sense again.
That's one of those moments that, if you don't nurture that dream,
Hmm.
right? I feel like if it eventually becomes into like this resentment, uh, and
Yeah.
and I feel like, for any artist, if you do have that the resentment, it'll eat at you, and I think it'll even eat at you creatively.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and you
um,
take it out on the people around you too, or you start taking the resentment, turning it into blame,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
When
yeah,
really it's all up to you.
exactly,
Yeah, you
exactly.
gotta make your life's choices, no
Yeah.
matter how hard they are. You gotta make
Hmm.
decisions. Otherwise, to your point, you either resent it, you blame, or finally you just give in and go, it's okay that this thing didn't happen. I made these other choices.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
and that's okay. I'm okay with what I did.
And that's a beautiful moment too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yep.
no, I agree. I think it is. So let's move on to I know you sent over a bunch of, so you get this job, right? And you sent
Uh-huh.
over this digital work, right? So let's take a look at some of this. So is this current work? Like, what are we looking at?
This right here was just a personal piece,
Hmm.
and see, so a lot of the like my work that I've done in companies were a lot of like black level company, like a lot of NDA
Hmm.
projects,
Hmm.
but these are more like personal. What if I had a mail, like a what is it, a mail a messaging bird,
Yeah.
right? And I wanted to go and just design something for fun,
Yeah.
and so I really enjoy these kind of projects because it's like you are essentially the art director,
Yes, that's right.
and you just kind of going at it, having fun with it, but at the same time you just got to tone down. You kind of you have to narrow the focus a little bit, and
How do you find art directing yourself? Because I think, well, there's two conversations here. One is, when you're not at a job, I find the the reason most artists go to work is because we want to know what we're supposed to be working on. It's one thing,
exactly,
right? It's one thing to have skill and be an artist, but the reason the world goes around, right? The reason there's commerce and business and games and movies and all these things is because somebody higher up is saying, I have an idea.
yeah,
I have an idea for a movie.
yes,
Okay, right? I need to get 15 concept artists in here onto this film. Here's the script guys, right? So somebody's driving it.
yes,
I find although artists have skills, it doesn't mean that they have sort of creative skill, like
yeah,
writing skill. Like they're not coming up with the concept. They need somebody to just throw them that first kernel,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So my first question, the first half of my question is, where do you get those from? I notice in a lot of your Instagram posts, you seem like you read a lot quite yourself. So is a lot of that coming from literature, your ideas? And then the second question is, you talking about art direction. That's another thing I think artists have a really tough time with, is looking at their own work and knowing what's right or what's wrong, or what is right and wrong. How do I make
yeah,
it better, right? Because now you're judging your own self,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it feels like it can get very subjective. Like, how do you make it objective? Is it subjective? Like, what is it,
yeah, yeah.
right?
So the first question, you know, I do read a lot, but not as much, right?
Hmm.
But a lot of these ideas come from, they spawn from just daydreams,
Mm,
right? And channeling that side of my mind. Yeah,
mm.
and it sounds so, hippie for me to be saying this, right?
Yeah.
But and then in terms of like the art direction, I actually get a lot of help with my wife.
Oh.
And so, of course, once I create, um, I like to think about myself in a monkey state whenever I'm creating, right? And then, and when I have the piece in front of me, no biased views. I look at it. I'm like, was the idea that I'm trying to communicate there, right? And if not, how can I fix it? And then sometimes I ask my wife. My wife is brutally honest. She says, "Baby, I don't know what the hell's going on here.
Right.
You might need to do this and that." And the cool thing about my wife is that her artistic eye has been developing, and she's more in financing. We got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's been with me for about 10 years,
Yeah.
her eye now is almost, or if not better than mine, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool.
so having that secondary person, including my mind, separating from my piece,
Mhm.
helps a lot with in terms of art direction. And
Mhm.
on top of that, the fact that I've been in the industry for like what, four and a half, maybe 4.5 years,
Mhm.
and I noticed that a lot of the art directors that I meet, they they don't have vision,
Mhm.
and I feel like a lot of people, and a lot of companies have art directors that just don't have vision,
Yeah.
and what and I
That's
just
not
get
good.
and I get annoyed. That annoys me to a point where I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you're getting paid more than me,
Yeah.
right? And yet I'm providing you with the vision,
The vision.
which is essentially my job, right, as a
Yeah.
concept artist. But at the same time, what you said, it's
Yeah.
like sometimes we're looking for that, right?
Yeah.
We're looking for that little piece of
Yeah.
crumb.
No, most definitely. I think, the last game company I worked at, it was interesting to me because it was a bigger organization, and therefore there were numerous art directors. So I was a senior AD at this place, and I was the only one that really had the drawing skill that I
Yeah,
had.
yeah,
So they kept bringing me in anytime there was like new IP getting developed, you know,
Yeah.
because they would get somebody who could start off a very small team as an art director, but also as another concept artist, another pair of hands to try and like develop the
Yeah.
vision, as you put it, you know. But my job, I thought, was always to look at the outside world, from reality to games and everything, and understand the space that we were trying to get this game into. And I was
Yeah.
always on me to put, you know, visual decks together and mood boards and go,
Yes.
right, like this is where this whole thing is going. And I have to march this whole team, not only art, but game design, talk to the creative director, the general manager, the GM, and get everybody on board, right? And sell, in
Hmm.
fact, like, here's my vision, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting you say that, because I think that that is one of the biggest parts of an art director's job, is to have a vision to focus the whole army towards, right? And get
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
to march to that. So,
And you get different. I mean, there's art director that just purely direct the work that the concept art get, right?
right,
And
right.
then you get like art. It's a very fuzzy line, because you get art directors like you, where you
Yeah.
create this entire deck, which is you're in a sense you're working as a creative director in a
It's
sense.
director. Yeah, I mean, director is
Exactly.
the key word in there, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, my relationships with the better creative directors were, they had a sense of, the creative directors that I've worked with are more, were more game designers.
Yeah.
So they had a sense of what they wanted the mechanics of the game to be like, and some sense of style, but they all pretty much handed that over to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And then we can have a conversation, because
There
you
you
know,
go.
I respect their vision as well. It's like, you know, you are the creative director. I'm here to help you create a vision, right? That's
Yeah.
my job, is to help you see this, you know. And then I, you know, I teach hierarchically, so to me everything is big to small. So instead of me having a whole team ramp up, like, it can just be you and me for a month having conversations back and forth, very cheap
Yes.
conversations. It's not much financial cost to me doing research and putting decks together, and us having conversations going, more
Yes.
of this, less of this, more of this, less of
Yes.
this,
Yes. Yes.
until we bring that all together. And then we're like, okay, let's bring some concept artists in. Now that my and your vision is clear, let's bring these guys in and explode it out a little bit. And then
Yeah.
we'll, you
Yeah.
know, and then we'll play like good and bad for a while again, until it get, you know, you keep sharpening the sword, basically, right?
And that is a beautiful thing, because
Yeah.
when I first started off,
Hmm.
my art director had no vision, right?
Hmm.
And but my creative director, he was like the one that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt like I had to cut off the middleman and just work with
Yeah.
the
Go
creative
right to the
director.
creative director.
Exactly, right?
Right.
So it kind of made me
Yeah.
feel like I was an art director in a sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, when you talked about finance wise, it saves so much money. These
Yeah.
companies should really understand that
Yeah.
if you hire
Oh
people that
God.
have a good mouthpiece, right, but have no vision, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you're wasting so much time and money.
Yeah. I mean, I could do
Yeah,
a
I don't
whole,
even want to jump in that.
it's a whole class. Like, I've even thought about doing like classes on art direction and business,
Yeah.
because like, I've been on so many projects in my life and seen money thrown away because people, teams move forward because of the stress of a schedule, instead of making sure the right
Yes.
questions are answered early on. And they're not answered early enough. And then if that doesn't really get solved, and everyone pushes forward, you're still going to have to solve that. And then now you
Yeah.
have 20 or 50 people or 100 people on a team,
Yes.
and then people get laid off because that answer wasn't solved, right? And you have to
Yeah.
go all the way back to the beginning. So frustrating, you know. And it's not always. I've been on teams where
Yeah.
it's like butter, you know, like we just smooth sail right through the whole
Yes.
process.
Yes.
And there's other ones that just create a ton of churn because the leadership doesn't know what needs to be answered before you can move forward, you know.
And do you realize that those uh, code nuggets are the ones that stick to you the most? Like,
Yeah.
let's say you're working with a team that's amazing, nice, and buttery, right?
Yeah.
And right,
Yeah.
but they don't stick. They don't taint you as hard as the ones that you had a horror
Yeah.
film with.
Yeah, no,
And
it's true. It's easier to get, I guess, affected by the
uh,
bad stuff versus the good, because the good seems like this is how it should work.
exactly, yeah.
So it seems normal. So when
Have
it's
you ever
bad, it's abnormal, you know?
have you ever had a nightmare project?
Yeah, of course. Many.
And I know that's a different.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to say, because
Yeah.
I don't want to,
No, many.
prolong this.
No, many. I think to me the biggest letdown, like I said, is when people get laid off because of poor leadership.
Yeah.
That's the most detrimental, thing. I've had to do it. I've had to lay people off because of
Mm.
not decisions of my own, because of decisions made above me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's the worst situation to be in. So all these pieces, these are, I guess, mostly personal pieces. Then you said, right?
Yep. There is if you go to my art station, I mean, you could, you don't even have to go right now, but there was one where it was Armor Jet, right? And that was like a little mobile game. But these are all personal pieces. These are all just like what I was feeling and, what I wanted to show. And they were pretty fun for me, to be honest. I mean, most of the personal pieces that anybody creates are mostly the ones that they enjoy the most, correct? I
Yeah,
mean,
of course. I hope so.
I know, I hope so too, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because
Cool.
in terms of my digital work, I've always been insecure about that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like a different beast to handle. You have multiple elements that you have to control in terms of color, in terms of like value, all this stuff compared to purely graphite work, where graphite is you could communicate that with only one element, right? With
Yeah.
one, which is still hard because a lot of people want so much of this, they want to have options,
Yeah.
but and yeah, these are cool, man. These are so fun to me, man. I swear
Yeah.
they taught me a lot too.
This one particular feels to me a little more like your graphite work.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's talking about force, if there's a sort of sinewyiness, and I almost think of it as like roots. When I think of force, a lot of it's almost like gnarled tree roots to me.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
tight everything like swirls around. And this piece has some of that in there.
I
Uh,
wonder. I wonder if it's the lumpiness of it, like how she got a little satellite here, SETI light, and a little
yeah.
bubbly head, and just the way the light kind of curves around those forms. Maybe.
Yeah, and and you're like you're pulling things through here, and the skin feels like it's all pulling from her shoulder,
Yeah.
and you've got a lot of these rhythms going on in here with her fish-like body. So there's all this like fluidity happening and pulling and stretching of skin and muscle and bone.
Yeah.
And I always feel a lot of that in your graphite work, which we're going to look at in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that these aren't cool, but it's interesting. I would have to say, like, if I saw this, it doesn't mean I would know it's you, because I know you from your Instagram account.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So they're great pieces. They're drawn well, they're painted well, but they're different, you know?
Yeah. And that's one thing that I want to like practice on, and just trying to find I guess a style in my digital work.
Yeah.
And it takes time, and just like it took time for my graphite work to you know to draw every day, and hopefully find some kind of something that I enjoy doing,
Hmm.
compared to my graphite work when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dare say this, and this could be something that gets cut out later if you don't like it.
No, go ahead. Go
but,
ahead.
but my art direction suggestion to you would be, I would challenge you with, how do you do that? I would like to see the Gary that gets the graphite work to combine better into this digital work. It almost
Mm,
feels like your digital work has come from you learning the digital space
yeah.
and the influences that you may have had in the
Yes.
digital space. And I would like to see your more uniqueness, I think, that you have in your graphite work than your digital work.
Yeah.
I would say just start by like literally just colorizing your graphite work just so you
That's
don't lose
true.
it. And then maybe try to paint literally with the way you stroke and draw to get more of the volume. Your
Yep.
graphite work is so voluminous and so solid and, like I said, sinewy and forceful. Like, how do you keep pulling that over here?
I
You
love
know?
that.
Yeah, I would
Hey,
love to see
keep that. Keep that. Please keep this. That
that.
was good. That was good. That's really good.
Yeah, I would love to see that, because this stuff's great. Like I I don't think I can. I know how to paint, but I'm not a digital painter.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like I've art directed teams to paint, and to
Yep.
get to projects to where I need to get them to. So this works great, but I think what I'm missing here is I want to see more of Gary. Like
Yeah.
the Gary I think we all know. Like this has a little bit of it in it. These hands, you can see the skin again, the pulling and the twisting off the knuckles, and there's a little bit more direction in the strokes of
Yeah.
how fluid they are. I think this is the beginnings of graphite meeting paint. There's you starting to shine through in this.
That's funny that you say that. My wife feels the same about that one.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and it's so funny because I feel like when I'm doing digital work,
Hmm.
I feel like I'm in the beginning stages of my graphite, and it gets me nervous. I don't know if you feel that,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah, that's interesting.
it's I guess the whole idea of, I don't want to say moving a few steps back,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is kind of in a sense, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. 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 You might have to go and be not as awesome as you are the way you are
exactly.
painting digitally. You have your certain caliber and your pencil
Yep.
caliber. And in your painting, you might have to go down a little bit to bring this guy in and,
Yes.
come back up on top again. Right.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. And, it's you having to be uncomfortable for a little while to be
Yep.
okay with that,
Hmm.
to let that happen.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah. So this is, I'm sure what I know you for, and probably what most of the artists who are going to be watching this know you for, which quite
Hmm.
frankly, I think is um, stellar, like really, really stellar, super high caliber work because, what you're doing here to analyze as an artist and a teacher is, God, you're combining the three main things for what I teach students, which is force, form, and shape,
Hmm.
right? And on top of that, you're also rendering, right? So you're using form to create light and shadow. And not like that's even the dramatic part of it. You almost seem to me like you use tone for light and shadow, but it's almost not like it has to be necessarily realistic lighting. Sometimes you just do it because it's cool. It's like, oh,
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to separate light to dark
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
render. You get the render anyway because you're kind of creating this like mesh around the characters, like organic mesh with the
Hmm.
grid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet you're keeping fluidity going at the same time. So what I'd love to hear from you, like how you got here. You mentioned earlier the idea of pencil versus mechanical pencil,
Hmm.
which is interesting to me because I usually don't have students draw with mechanical at the beginning because it's such a
Yeah.
needle-like tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've done this amazing job of taking this needle-like tool that seems like it would not be forceful at all,
Hmm.
and you've got drawings full of like character and fluidity. And like how did that happen? How did you get to this place?
Well, that's like a hard question to answer, but I'm gonna try my best, right?
Okay.
Because I think it all started when I began drawing bigger, right?
Mm.
I started using bigger muscles. Instead of my wrists, I started using my shoulders. And what I
Ah.
started noticing,
Hmm.
with the help of your force book and a lot of other resources too,
Sure.
was just like being able to like understand what you liked as an artist. So as I would use my shoulder,
Older.
I started understanding that, I love the way this is fluid, like this. It was almost gesture like, right?
Hmm.
And at the time, I was drawing. Like if you compare my current work to my earlier work,
Hmm.
the amount of rendering was not even there. Like I was just creating something loose that seemed like an arm, and I kind of enjoyed seeing that.
Hmm.
But as I kept on going, I started doing little circle shape drawing. I mean, like little circles, like circle shapes
Hmm.
to like kind of wrap around an object, right? And
Hmm.
I started like, it clicked with me, and that I really enjoyed seeing this. So I wanted
Right.
to see more of it, right?
Right.
And keep in mind at this time, I was like, I had a few artists that really inspired me, but then I kind of let them go and just purely focused on what I was really feeling
Hmm.
and what I enjoyed seeing.
Hmm.
And so as that vision built, it started evolving into what you're currently seeing now.
Hmm.
And I mean, in terms of the whole wireframe
Hmm.
and that feel, I mean, it came from 3D aspect, right? Because I used to do a couple of 3D work,
Hmm.
and I enjoyed seeing that too. So it's more of that whole awareness of what you enjoy seeing as an artist and what you want your work to be like, what you want your work to speak. I don't even know if I'm making sense, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's pretty deep what you're talking about, you know.
yeah.
I want to look at that.
And if you look at my ink work, it's completely different as well.
Yeah, that's why I want to save that for a second because it's slightly different, right?
Yeah.
But staying on this just for now. So I love what you were saying there because this idea of the shoulder, you know, like to me hierarchically, you know, you start with your shoulder for big ideas, and it's usually like
Hmm.
medium ideas, small ideas, and
Yeah.
like really small ideas, right? So it's
That's
like,
that's how it works.
yeah, it like makes physical sense relative to what the idea is, right? And you're
Exactly.
working your way down the arm. But
Exactly.
now I've seen your, you know, your drawings, especially the ones where you come up with ideas out of nothing. You know, it's like, here's some scribbles. It's almost like I do that when I'm in the bathroom. Like I look at tile,
Yeah.
you'll see like the grain in the tile, and I'm like, oh, look at that face, or here's a horse running, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of idea. So how did you get to this smallness and still learn how to contain that much like power and movement, you know, and volume in something that's only this big instead of maybe drawings that are this big or even bigger, right?
Hmm. Well, if you think about it, like a curved line at any size
Mm-hmm.
could mean something, right? So, if certain lines intersect, regardless of the scale,
Mm-hmm.
your mind automatically just kind of it picks out an image of what
Mm-hmm.
you have already stored in your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, as I started going like smaller, I started understanding that not only do I save a lot of time, all right,
Yeah.
um, but it's almost the same effect. My mind is still, functioning the same way. And so when I started scribbling in a way, it taught me how to just quiet the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the beginning, you might have insecurities of what I'm going to draw. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But as you notice, like, the more you scribble, the more your mind kind of quiets down, and then it just starts bubbling ideas like, oh, what if this thing,
Mm-hmm.
or what if this was a princess that's carrying a potion that whatever, and then you start creating these stories.
Right.
So in a sense, keeping your arm moving, and like even these little notepads, keeping my fingers moving,
Right.
it takes my mind off of like it takes me out of my mind,
Right. Right.
which at the
So the,
same.
so like the physical act of motion
Mhm.
allows you to go into a subconscious autopilot
There you go.
that allows the ideas to flow, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just an like it's an automated
Right.
and once you find that, like, everybody's different.
Hmm.
Everybody has a different way of going into that state of mind. But I think we're all human. I mean, we're all in a sense
Hmm.
built kind of the same,
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
and
Yeah.
so that really helped me out. And that's what helped generate some of these ideas because I mean, a part of daydreaming, just the act of getting out of my own mind or like reading and like seeing different images that really inspired me, but then letting it go and letting my mind do the work in the background in hopes that maybe an idea will pop out in the middle of the night and I had to wake up and record it, right?
Yeah. How, you know, the level of detail on some of these drawings, though, I would, you know, like I don't think I would come up with like this jewelry around her upper arm, right? So
Yeah,
are you always spending your free time looking at reference that's
yeah.
exciting to you? Hmm.
I'm looking at reference. I'm also drawing reference. So let's say if I'm looking at jewelry, I have a sheet full of drawings of jewelry. That way I can record that in my head
Right.
because you want to be as efficient as possible when you're creating a piece. And if you already have that information in your head, a little blurry, but if you have it in there,
Yeah.
you're able to create it or like translate that information into your drawing,
Right.
but in a different way. You
Right.
get it?
Yeah, it's more of an inspiration point, right?
Exactly.
So and would it be fair to say then that through the act of drawing is how you remember, right? So you're
Yeah.
drawing things to memorize and fill your internal encyclopedia with
Yep.
information, right? Through the act of drawing. Do you,
Yeah.
how organized or unorganized is that? Do you go, you know what, for the month of January, I'm going to look at jewelry. And then month of February, I'm going to look at gladiator armor. And then next month or next week, I'm going to look at makeup design of tribes, like,
Yeah.
how does that
I
work?
wish I was like that. I'm so like, and my wife like to say, my mind is so scatterbrained. It's like, it's what I feel. I'm so, I don't want to say in tune with my emotion, but
Yeah.
it's all about what I feel.
Yeah.
And if I feel like, maybe I might look at another person's piece. I'm like, oh, I like that jewelry, or
Yeah.
I like the hairpiece on that person.
Yeah.
I'm not that good at it. Oh, and so that
Right.
emotion kicks in. I need to do this.
Right.
And I submerge myself into it. Right.
Yeah.
But then I get tired of it. And then, because if you're kind of bulldozing through information, a
Mhm.
lot of that information is going to be wasted time because your brain is not going to record it. Right. Because it's like you already tone yourself out
Yeah.
because,
Because you
hey,
don't
you're tired.
care.
Exactly.
You don't
Right.
care, right?
So it's like in a classroom, the first 10 minutes is the like the most important information that you have to share because students are more aware within that time frame.
Right.
After 30 minutes, you see them kind of like dozing off a little bit.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's interesting. So you allow yourself the um indulgence, if I dare call that, of I'm going to allow my inner interests, my inner self to guide me through what I'm going to go after, right? I'm in the mood to look at jewelry this week, so I'm going to go do
exactly.
that until I'm sick of it. And I'm like, I'm kind of tired of jewelry. And
Yeah,
sometimes by doing that, one thing will lead to another thing, and lead to
it
another,
does. It does.
right? It's like, oh, this jewelry on this one model. Wow, look where she is. She's in France. Oh, well, I think I want to do some Parisian architecture. Let me take a look at that. And then that
Yeah.
might lead you to cars or something like, a month down the
Yeah,
road, right?
exactly. And I know this is like so heartbreaking, breaking because I know you're probably looking for, you got this schedule going on. Oh, I like this, right?
Yeah.
And so that leads to questions to, well, wait, why is your mind so sporadic? Well, why? Like, those kind of questions. But it ultimately comes down to just basing your work on your emotion and how you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you're working full time and you having people guide you to work,
Yeah.
especially digital work,
Yeah.
you just want to go home and just explore on a different medium so that you can have a separation from work to life,
Yeah.
that kind of balance.
It's tricky, it's challenging and tricky for me because in the teaching seat, um,
That's tough.
yeah, I don't have the indulgence, or at least I
Yeah.
don't give myself the indulgence of, I'm just going to kind of follow my flow of like what I like. I've already, in a way, created like a system, right, to help students through. So
Yep.
to your point, it gets challenging for me also when I just go to sit and draw, which is some of the stuff I'll put on Instagram, like just my doodles.
Yep.
It's really hard for me to disengage out of my day to day to get to the space you're talking about. Like I'm
Yeah.
just going to try to loosen up and free up. Like, what am I interested in drawing? Where is this going
Hmm.
to take me? And
Yep.
and I think trust is a good word to bring in here, right? To
It is.
trust, yeah, like just trust yourself to to guide you through what shows up, like
Yeah.
what's going to
Yeah.
come, what's going to happen, and it's okay, and it's okay to fail in that space too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that drawing sucks, it's all right, let's go do another one. Right.
But I also think you have to you have to be in a peaceful mindset. And
Yeah.
what I mean about this is like, I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
Going through this whole pandemic so far, I have been working for about a month or 2 months now, right?
Hmm.
So your mind space is in a different world where it's like, okay, money. Oh man, like, what am I gonna do to get money? So
Right.
that adds stress to your mind. So your mind, honestly, it works in a really interesting way where your creativity gets affected sometimes by
Yeah.
those stresses,
Yeah,
right?
most definitely.
So whenever you have like a constant flow of money coming in, your mind is like, oh, cool, I got that money. Ooh, now
Yeah.
it's all about how am I dedicated to space to separate time in the afternoon so I could work on this
Yeah.
in a different, like, you get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
it's
no, it's survival,
it
really.
is it
You know,
is
it's like when your brain's in survival mode, you can't really be creative, you know.
it's tough.
It's kind of been proven, actually. I think I've read even papers done on this, especially for creative people. Like, you know, if you don't have a job, or you're in a job where you're worried about being fired, or there's layoffs, like
Oh man.
yeah, it's hard to do your job. It's hard to be creative in that space, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
Your space gets occupied with, how am I going to pay my bills? Am I going to get kicked out of my apartment or whatever,
yeah.
right?
And that's when artists go into a dark hole in terms of what they use. Like they might use a substance that makes them feel a particular way,
Yeah.
or they. What I like to do though is like,
Mhm.
I like to listen to sad music. Believe it or not, I listen to sad music so it can like make me so, leave me alone. My wife started tapping me.
Yeah.
I have to create, and I just start tearing up and stuff.
Right.
Or maybe a little beer. Hey, you know
Yeah.
those, right?
A little alcohol or beer doesn't hurt.
Yeah, man, a little social lubrication right there.
Exactly. Take the edge off of the fear.
It
Right?
does, it does.
So last but not least, art-wise, with what you sent over and what you were saying before, is you also have this slightly different style going on here than with this work, right? So how does that differ for you? What is this in comparison to the graphite? I guess your ink work really is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I wonder. This kind of gives me a question to myself. It's like, does a medium tweak your style?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question.
Because style, in a sense, is based on the medium, I
Hmm.
believe.
Hmm.
Because it's a different mindset using graphite compared to ink.
Hmm.
Because when I was inking these right here, again, I had a brush pen, and you can't do so many loops, or you can't do so many C-shape shading techniques
Hmm.
on this because it'll muddy it up. So
Hmm.
you have to. It's a different approach, which means a different mindset required to do these things, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I'm kind of, my opinion on this is right on the fence with you. It's or with my thought, and that is, I remember I had a teacher in college that drew very specifically in his way, and I took him for 3 years, so I knew him really, really well. And every so
Yeah.
often, I'd come in with a different tool. We usually drew with like charcoal on paper,
Yep.
and I would come in with like a brush marker, and he would make that brush marker act exactly like the charcoal.
Holy cow.
I know. I'd be like, God, how did you do that? Like, how did you even pull that off? So for me, I think the decision is more of, do I want this tool to affect me
Mm.
or not? Like, am I gonna
Yeah. Yeah.
ignore the tool, or am I gonna try to respond to how it makes me feel differently?
Yeah.
Right? Like when I draw with a mechanical pen, for instance, I usually get more angular and more brainy. And when I draw with something like a really soft graphite or the waxes or things I normally draw with, I draw more forcefully because they're softer and more organic and more
Mm.
fluid. It's not like I can't draw force with a pen, but if I allow it to affect me, I feel like I get more shapy, and it's just more brainy. You know, it's not as like emotional and physical.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
true. I
Like
mean,
I'm not gonna take a little ballpoint pen to an 18 by 24 sheet of paper, like a huge
yeah,
piece of paper
yeah,
with a ballpoint, and draw this giant forceful drawing. Like I want
yeah,
something thick and luscious in my hands that I'm like, "Rah, I
yeah.
want
Something
to
you could
feel it."
push against the grain of the paper, right?
Yeah, and
You
that
know?
like gives me some muscle in my
Yeah,
drawing, you know,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's just a different experience. So, but to your point, no matter how much you do that, I would agree with you that there's just certain restraints to certain medium, you know.
yeah.
Like if you do too much of the brush on here, and you were to do what you did with graphite, you don't have the gradation level that you have,
True. Yeah.
and then it's like all black. You would have to grab different markers, right? You have to
Oh
grab,
yes.
so you might be able to pull off your style, but you might need 5 markers to do it.
Yep. Yep. And then a few more packages of those markers because I might bend the actual pin lead,
Exactly.
because when I'm doing the graphite work, I do push pretty hard, and I
Oh,
mean,
you do. Mm.
well, it's not like in a big. I'm not like fully, oh, he's just like a barbaric artist just going at it, right?
Right.
But that actually helps with the idea of creating force, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I gotta feel like I'm going in there, I gotta
Yeah.
grind it, and honestly, my graphite work, it is a little taxing.
Mm-hmm.
So especially the size of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to like keep them in a smaller size so that
Mm-hmm.
they're not as taxing compared to like Inkworks, where I sometimes like to jump on my Inkwork to give my arm a little rest, believe it or not. So yeah,
Like this hand feels very
it's so
graphite.
messed up.
Yeah,
It is so.
but it's graphite Gary to me,
I got you. I got you.
right? Like it has your rhythm and your organicness and flow,
Got you.
like more than other areas, let's say. Like the face is good. Like you draw well. We all know you draw well. It's got Gary in it, but the hand, I really see it. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, it's got that thing going on that you do in the graphite.
Hmm.
It'd be interesting to see you handle it and see if you were able to get closer to graphite through different tone. But I hear you. I get, and the smoke is very you. To me, in my mind, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole you by any means, but
No, it's all right.
in my, for every artist, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy does this thing. This guy does this thing.
Yeah.
When I think of Gary, I'm like, wow, super luscious, voluminous, fluid drawings of God, crazy imaginative things, right? Like the stuff you
Mm.
come up with is so fantastical. And they're almost always done as vignettes. You don't usually work in frames. You have vignetted pieces, they
Hmm.
float in a space, and you encapsulate the composition almost within itself.
Yeah.
So which is also interesting.
I love the way you explain it. That was
Thanks. Yeah,
because my
thank you.
wife, she explains my work too, and I'm like, I just sit there just like, I don't see my work that way. Like it's
Interesting.
as a creator, you just
How do
kind
you
of,
describe it? That would be interesting to hear. That's a great question,
I'm
actually.
so limited in the way I describe it. It just reminds me of butter. I know it sounds
Oh,
so
you do think
bad.
about butter
Yeah, I
too.
think about butter all the time, man. I know it's so bad for the heart, but
So that's
but
cool. Yeah, butter. Well, why
I'm
butter?
so,
Hmm.
but it's real relaxing to me. Well, not the actual butter, but like the
Hmm.
whole line work. And
Yeah,
again, you got to keep in mind why I was kind of using this kind of line work, because it was a way for me to just to tone down the outside world, the world, right?
yeah.
If that little accent came out, the world,
The world.
the world. And so again, I usually pay attention to how things make me feel, and the fact that I think it was a combination of many things. It was a combination of the way it made me feel, the way people were reacting,
Mhm.
because people were like, "Oh, dude, that's so cool." So I was like, "Oh, like I guess I'm going some right direction," which
Yeah,
is bad, which is very bad to do
yeah.
that.
It can be. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little decision that I made early on that I guess it paid off. But
Mhm.
it was again just the way I love having I love having an efficient way of shading, because
Mhm.
it doesn't take long to have these lines make a form compared to just
Yeah,
trying to render it out with mini circles. You get what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. I think it's what I love is that um, I love your shading technique is actually still a drawing technique. Just to
Hmm.
separate, to me, they're two different things. Like there's rendering and there's drawing.
Oh, okay, okay.
A lot of people want to put them together, and you, on the other hand, are actually putting them together. And that's not what's normally done. Usually, shading is shading. It doesn't matter what direction the line is going. In
Mm,
fact, you're not creating line. You're just creating flat
yeah,
tones,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you're creating tone through line, which I think is, I guess, would make sense as to what I'm so attracted by, because I'm more of a line person than I am a
Yeah.
renderer. So this, like, to me, in my world, in my brain that I exist in, I'm like, well, that makes total sense. Here it is. Like rendering comes out of form, not the other way around,
See, you're making me more aware of what I'm actually making.
Cool.
Yeah. I know it sounds so bad for me to say that as
Yeah,
the actual creator,
yeah,
but that's one of the things that I really enjoy, just having the lines actually create the shade
yeah,
within the pieces.
yeah. No, I mean, it's, and it's real mass, you can really feel the sort of the full volume of the objects, it's a really
Hmm.
tough thing to pull off. I think it's one of the things that starts really differentiating different levels of skill in artists.
Hmm.
And one skill that's a tough one to pull off is to really make things feel like they occupy space on a two-dimensional plane, right? This is all
Mm.
just paper or monitor, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But your stuff feels always like I can grab it. I understand that. It's really solid. And I think it comes from, based off of what you're saying, that you started these ideas of these like circles, right? And that started implying form to you,
Yeah.
the thickness and roundness of things, And I when I have my students, I actually have them practice ellipses and circles because I think there's something really powerful, also forceful in that, and like trying to
Yeah.
control that and going around it and pushing into areas of a circle or not pushing into other areas.
Hmm.
And I just think you're like masterful at that. That's really let you explode down this
Hmm.
graphite path. Whenever
Cool.
you're ready.
I'm actually just gonna just go through the whole process of how I come up with ideas.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Um, so it's funny. I enjoy drawing and talking at the same time because this
Oh,
just
great. I was going to ask you that.
no, I really do. So this idea, this thing came into mind last night, and it was about this woman that had like this weird headpiece. And I don't know. I've always been a big fan of having women with being very decorative.
Yeah.
So if you look at, it's so funny when you look at my initial sketches, they're so, you know, I always let the loops kind of explain what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kind of like
they're leading you, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of the ideas really don't make sense in the beginnings, but it's all about just having fun and just letting the mind kind of just wander off.
I've got to add this whole idea of a loop, right? So your work in general, like if we were to this comes from all my art directing years and teaching years, but like if I were to abstract your work and say what percentage of Gary's work is curvy and what percent is straight, right? What's a curve and what's a straight? You're
Oh, that's
like
true.
you're like 80% curved line and like 20% straight line, right?
I honestly think it's 90%.
Yeah, maybe even more, right?
Because yeah, it's funny that you say that. You're giving me this awareness of my own work, which is pretty sad, but it's sad for me, but it's cool just hearing that.
Well, my point to this is, curved lines really help create organic form, right? Because you're wrapping around things, right? Which you do
Hmm.
all the time. And curved lines create force because they create rhythm and fluidity, right? So it makes total sense. And I'm just doing this now on the fly too with you. And it makes total sense that therefore your work visually looks the way it does because it's voluminous and it's fluid. And it's because you lean very heavily into curves, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Like,
And
there's other artists who work very much with straight lines and they get into that really more like graphic feel or perspective driven feel, which I love too. It's like
yeah.
it's a whole other space. It represents a different feel to things.
So it's all personal taste, correct?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. It's like, what you like, the way you like. I think to go with the taste thing, I think there's a thing about it's almost like finding yourself.
Yeah.
You've kind of like clicked into your personal power here when you started doing the circle thing you were talking about. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is how I work, and I work best in here. Like I get it, and it's fun, and it's not necessarily, it can be challenging, but it's not hard, and I'm not frustrated,
Exactly.
right?
So I guess you're in a sense in a comfort zone too, right? Because
Yeah, yeah. Well, that you enjoy. But when I hear comfort, I start thinking, oh, comfort's not good, right? Because
yeah,
like I'm not growing. But I think you can grow within your zone. You can
that's true.
definitely
Yep.
you can get better and better in here as well.
But you also got to have a sense of awareness too, because I mean, you got to be of what exactly do you want to, you know, get better at, and having that whole idea of, you know, being in a comfort zone, which it's funny how you said that, oh, it's a bad thing, but at what point do you allow yourself to feel that comfort?
Yeah, that it's okay, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I agree with you. I agree. When I think comfort, I think my younger self used to really think of comfort negatively because I just picture sitting on the couch watching TV all day long.
oh my gosh, I
You know, right? Like I don't want that, like not that that's bad, but not all the time, like you're not growing through that either. You want to be out there doing your thing, and it's a skill-based thing and you learn by doing, you know.
yeah. It's also I wonder how much time we've wasted in life. You
Yeah,
ever think
that's
about
true.
that?
I was at a friend's house last night, and they're directors in the entertainment industry,
Yeah,
these friends of mine. And he's, most people probably don't know this, but when you're in the guild in the entertainment industry, you get screeners for all the movies because you're supposed to vote on who's going to win the Oscars, right?
oh
So
man,
he's got like, drawers and drawers and drawers filled with DVDs he's bought and screeners from being in the guild. And I looked at that and I thought, oh my God, I know, first of all, almost all these movies that he has here. I've seen almost every one of them myself. And I said to him, man, you realize how much of our lives we've spent like just watching content. Like we
yeah.
could have built the Egyptian pyramids with the time that we've put into like doing this, right?
Hmm.
So much of our lives.
And also how we as a society started becoming more of a consumer
Yes.
compared to like actually a creator,
Yes. No, it's
which
true.
is I think nowadays is one of the most important things is utilizing your time to be a creator instead of a consumer. You
Yeah.
know.
With things like Netflix or Amazon Prime, I think
Oh,
it's good for everyone to be aware, like, go ahead, watch the shows, but be aware you're watching someone else doing their job,
exactly.
right? Like the actors, the directors, they're being creative and you're spending your time watching that. So that's fine. Do it, be inspired, enjoy it, or relax. But what we're all looking for, what the world is looking for, is for you to show us what your creative spirit is.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you look at my work right now,
Yeah.
what I'm sketching, this is like this is what all of my pieces would look like in a separate piece of paper, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm having fun. I'm just having like this whole how does one element interact with another,
Yeah. I
and
see.
I don't care too much about how the anatomy looks as long as it's somewhat around the ballpark of it being believable, you
Yeah.
know.
Right. That's a
So it's
great note.
you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because if you're in the mindset of like, oh, this is doesn't look right 100%, then you're gonna automatically stop your mind from having fun because you are in a sense removing that play, the sense of play, right?
Yeah, I think that's I can't tell you how profound what you just said is. I mean, most of the students, they're focused, man. Everybody is so focused on just getting like proportion right and measuring based off of a reference. And I'm like, man, you just need to loosen up and play. And let's just use the reference as inspiration to understand life first,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then we can get to accuracy. I have nothing against trying to get accurate. But then when you're drawing from imagination, you're the owner, right? So
Hmm.
do what you want, and you decide on what level, like you said, of believability or how much you want to break it. Like it's totally up to you.
Yep. And
So
that's.
yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. No, no, no.
Well,
I
I
was.
was I was just going to ask. I'm sure I wanted to ask some arty questions here that I know people will ask. Like, all right, so you're drawing with a graphite. What level of graphite is that? Right? What hardness or softness is it?
Yeah, this is I think a B.
A B.
So I found, oh man, I found my pencil that I used to use a while back, and it's a 7, right? It's a .7 lead.
Uh huh.
And so the reason why I discarded it is because I lost my little rubber piece. So I just put a lot of duct tape on it,
Yep.
and it made me remember the times where I used to tattoo, right? And I tattooed just like three pieces on three separate people.
Hmm.
And what I enjoyed about the whole tattoo process was having a thick rubber handle on my tattoo machine,
Yep.
and it kind of it alleviates the pressure a little bit,
Yeah.
and yeah, it kind of it it allows you to put more pressure without taxing your arm.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're 100% right. Like I learned that trick when I was in art school from a painting teacher, because paintbrushes are really skinny and thin. And actually, it wasn't a painting teacher, it was an inking teacher for comics. He said, you know, wrap a lot of tape around it. It makes it fatter and it stresses your hand less. And it actually gives you more control because you're holding something bigger, so you can make the finiteness more accurate.
Mike, you should have told me this. I,
But you figured it out. You're doing it. You know,
yeah,
like you're
I
using the
figured it
tool.
out, but I figured it out in such a weird way. I was like, my
Yeah.
hand's starting to hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna explain something really quick that
Please.
that for me helps me out when I'm creating something that's cool, going towards the viewer.
Hmm.
So I want to do a hand that I was having a little hard time trying to come up with what I was gonna do here, but
Hmm.
I want to have a hand pointing kind of like towards you.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of like to add like a sphere, right?
Hmm.
And I kind of like to go do like layers of lines, kind of like overlapping each other to give you that sense of like going in depth.
The foreshortening.
Yeah. So in a sense, if you look at my style, my style is like this, but in an angle. So if you angle that out, you know, it creates this sense of going in depth. You know, like it's going backwards.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, it's going in. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're wrapping to create foreshortening, and that's creating the space, right? And
Exactly.
you're looping your way back, right?
There you go. The loop idea.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get it. You're building your way back, and it's allowing your head to imagine that tube basically of the arm.
Yep. So now this hand is kind of like somewhat pointing towards you,
Mhm.
and then I like to put the. Well, I just lost the chain of thought right there. You see how your mind kind of like wanders off for a second?
Yeah.
Oh man.
You know what's really interesting to me, I have to say, is you have excellent line control. And what I mean by that is you're working with a B mechanical pencil, and yet there's a lot of variety of dark to light line. Like you're almost a natural dancer, you know? You're probably an
Oh,
excellent dancer, I would bet. Like,
I
yeah.
am, but not like crazy. But I love like norteño music.
Uh-huh. No, I'll bet, like, you know, and I bet you'd probably be a pretty decent athlete too, you know, like you've got a really good physical sense of pressure, you know, and pushing in and out, pushing in and out of the page, like that's naturally like happening as you're working, you
You
know?
also have to, whenever you're working with lead, what I love the most, and this is what, I mean, you get the same effect with pencil, but if you look really close, I don't know if I could,
Yeah, it
come
wants to
on, hold
focus
on.
on the paper. Yeah,
There
there
you
you
go.
go.
Up, up,
Yeah.
up. Okay.
You're
So you see
chiseling.
how, yeah, exactly. See that angle?
Yeah.
Well, that angle right there, you're going to get multiple things. So like, check this out. You can get a crispy dark line, or like you could incline your wrist a little bit to get a thin line, but then you could
Right.
also just take the face of it, the face of that lead, to get a
Right.
thicker. So that's when I'm kind of like rotating as I go. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of rotating the pencil so I could get this variety of line works.
Are you doing that? How do I explain this? Are you rotating like all the time, or do you rotate based on as you're drawing, you know, I want the fat, light, chiseled line here, or I want to
Yeah,
rotate this to give me a crisp, thin line?
yeah, there you go. So that's the way I'm perceiving
Mhm.
it. So it
Right.
depends on
The
what's the
usage.
next. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. 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 I mean, we'll see. That's another level of, I think, your sophistication or sensitivity here is that you're aware of the tool. And you draw, I have to say it's very similar to what I do, because I do the same exact thing except with a fatter drawing tool at a bigger scale drawing, right? But it's like
Mm,
the same thing, just bigger size. And I try to get a chiseled edge so I know where it is, right? And I like this sort of very lush thickness of that.
yeah.
It feels like fleshy or like butter, as we were saying before,
Yeah, there you go, butter.
right? Yeah, it's like butter. And then if I need something sharp, like I want to go into a facial feature or do something where I need the crispness, I know I can rotate it like 90 degrees and I'll get a crisp like corner out of the tip that I've been defining over while drawing with butter.
There you
Right?
go.
It's like the butter and knife technique, I guess, right? It's like
It
butter,
is.
butter,
I actually,
butter. Boom. Yeah.
I like the way you explained that, the whole butter and knife technique. You know.
Yeah. When to cut it and when to just go for the smooth ride.
Mhm. One another thing I really
Yeah.
well, like I hate about doing graphic because again, you have to. I like to work from left to right because I don't want
Right.
to smear. You know.
Right. Right.
But when you start so much on the right side, you're like, damn it, I kind of limited myself unless I put like a wax piece of paper over it.
Right. Yeah. I've seen you do that.
Yeah, but see, these ideas again, they spark out with just me doodling and just like, or what if I ask myself a lot of questions in terms of what if this tentacle was wrapping around another character, or
Right.
you know,
Oh, that's cool.
it's
That's
like
big. That's a big deal right there, man.
it's
Everyone,
kind of
I don't
like
know if
just
you, yeah, like, sorry to interrupt. It's like,
no, I interrupted you.
but the idea of, I just want everyone, I really want to make a clear point of what you just said, and that is the magic of what if is big, right? That really
Yes.
lets your brain explode open. Well, what if this happened? What if this happened? What if, if you're going in there and drawing you from your imagination, as Gary said, really well before, and your focus is, oh, the anatomy is wrong or this measurement's off, there's no room for what ifs,
Yep.
instead your focus is just purely on accuracy, and you start to squelch your own creativity, right?
Yep. So you're putting that you're removing the child mind and then you're going back to the adult mind and just
Yeah.
so you in a sense have to be in a childlike mentality.
Yeah.
Well,
Curious and creative.
yeah, exactly. There you go. The curiosity.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at, not the actual kid mind. You can't go like, oh my god,
Right, exactly.
stuff like that.
Well, it's
But
like Picasso, Picasso said the same thing. I forget the exact quote, but it's, the idea is to see the world through a child's mind, right? With the intelligence and maturity of an adult, right?
yeah, yep.
It's like you want
That's
to
the
be in
thing.
that TED. Yeah, like, look, you have the skill of an adult, but try to have the creativity and curiosity of a child, right? And try to put those two things together.
I've always wondered about his life. If you looked at his earlier work, he was so highly detailed and
Well, he was a realist,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
talking about, you and I talked about Barcelona, I think, before we started recording. And I was in Barcelona last year, and they have an amazing Picasso museum there. And I mean, his his early work at around, I think they had a painting or two from like when he was about 14 and then 19. It was so academically amazing that I was sitting there going, "This isn't real. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way he did this when he was 14." But his dad was a painter, right? So
Oh,
yeah, so he learned very early on from an extremely experienced painter, right? His dad. And he didn't go into the abstraction work until I think it was his late 40s, early 50s.
I
So
wonder why though. Do you get tired of just rendering realistic elements, or do you want
yeah,
to explore a different side of your mind
I
that
don't know. It's a good question. I don't remember a clear answer to that. I do remember that I think what broke him out of it was he did studies of another famous artist's piece, this giant oil painting, and he abstracted it. And then that was the beginning of him like breaking away.
mm,
Yeah,
I
it's
love that.
pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, it made him Picasso, right?
Yep. I think that's the stage that every artist is trying to reach at, to a point where you break what you believed in that your entire life into something that that whole confidence of following your oh man, how can I say it? Kind of like what Picasso did,
Yeah,
just
following yourself, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have my own opinions about art, obviously, but I think just like everyone else does, but I think that skill alone is not what art's about.
Mm-mm.
Like, you want to use your skills to voice yourself, right?
Do you think skills go hand in hand with a artist's ego,
With ego,
or like or the way people perceive skill? It's like, yeah, I have an amazing skill. Oh, they kind of boast it. They
it could. No, I've seen both. I mean, there's people who are very skilled and maybe are, egotistical. And I've met many people in my life that I think are amazing, and they're extremely humble, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I mean,
That's amazing.
I mentioned to you John Navarez before, and here I am, John. I'm going to tell the world that, John is one of the nicest people. Um, yeah, one of the nicest people I've ever met, and I think he's probably one of the best draftsmen I've ever met too.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, he's an amazing individual and extremely skilled and super fast. Like he's like the full package.
Oh,
So,
that's a beautiful thing, man.
yeah, it is a
Whenever,
beautiful thing. Yeah, no, it really is. I just think, what I'm trying to get at here is I don't, everyone's got their path as an artist, and your path may very well be, I just want to be able to see clearly and, in a sense, like copy things well. And I'm more than happy creating art that does that. And
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not here to judge that, but I want you to be aware, if you are someone who's in that space and you start feeling frustration, don't feel like you have to be trapped in that space. That means there's a further journey for you, and that you should try and follow that journey, because the rest of us are waiting. We want to see you do it.
yeah. And you also help with new ideas,
Yeah.
because if you see just constantly the same thing online, I mean, you're not really feeding people's minds. I mean, if you
No, it's
see a lot
true.
of fan art, you're essentially just showing people, oh, what's really out there. Okay, cool. But
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very true.
another thing is what your local economy is trying to find. I mean, like, for example, where I came from, this right here would not sell. What
Hmm.
would sell is extreme realism, like
Oh,
drawing my grandpa's face, that kind of
right.
idea. That will sell.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it all depends on where you're currently living, because if
Yeah.
you have a lot of country folks, they're not going to care about
No, it's
what is
true.
this, like, what, I don't even know what this is. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
fortunately, I guess that's where the internet helps us a lot.
Yes, yeah, yeah. But yeah, this is kind of like an idea. This is how I
Yeah.
start, and I might just end it right here if you don't mind,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
awesome. I mean, look at how much movement it has, and I'm really enamored, like I said, because I like this zone I get into as well, that I see in your work, of the thick to thin line, and it's like a fun little ride that your mind goes on as you're going through these different pressure sensitivities and
yep,
form. And it's really an exciting space, I think, in my head, when I'm like, oh, I'm traveling away and towards myself and different
yeah,
energies. And it's just such a fun experience to allow yourself to get into that zone.
hmm hmm
Yeah, it's very cool. So I just want to say thank you so much, Gary. I mean, first of all, it's been amazing, just getting to know you better and talking
hmm
to you. And I really want artists to, have a sense in watching these interviews that there's a person behind the art. And I love
yeah,
figuring out, like, why does this artist's work look this way? Because to me, they're a direct reflection of who the person is. And
hmm
I think you're someone that I've seen, not only today, but even through your posts. It's got a lot of spirit, and you're, a very deep, curious individual. And I know now that you dance well, which I would have guessed by
there you
your
go.
drawing. I can always spot the good dancers by how they draw.
That's funny.
You know?
I like that. I'm so used to
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah. We now know I think we also have a commonality in, like, butter. The
Man, honestly, thank you
butteriness.
so much for explaining the work, because sometimes an artist needs somebody else to explain it for them. Because, and I know it sounds bad. I mean, sometimes we get so caught up into just the act of creating, that
Yeah.
we don't really. It's like teaching. You don't really break. Sometimes you got to break down your own thought process for people
Yeah.
to really understand. And
Well, don't worry about having to do it. And I'm glad that I was able to help in any way I could, because your job isn't to teach. Your
yeah,
job as an artist is just be an artist. And
yeah,
to be a teacher, yes, you're right. You should break it down. And that's hard.
hmm
So my recommendation would be, don't worry about it. Like, do your thing. We all love that you're doing your thing. Like, keep
hmm
doing your thing. Keep growing in your space. I would love, like I said, my challenge to you, if I dare say, is I want to see you keep combining that graphite look with your digital work. And I'm sure the
definitely gonna
rest of the
start
world.
doing that.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where that can take you and what that means. How do those two things combined, because you have shared such an individual voice for us, that stands out across so much of the other work that's out there. And hopefully you feel that. I think you're feeling that from the community and how we've all
Hmm.
connected to your work, and I love how humble you are, and open you are, and transparent you are. So thank you. Thank you
I
and
appreciate
thank you
that
for your
so
time.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have a great afternoon and enjoy
Yes.
your week.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that.
I
All
look
right now,
forward to your future art.
I appreciate that.
All
You
right.
take care of yourself. All right.
Take care. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.